Innovation and Design Thinking. IDT. VTU. Design Thinking for Strategic Innovations. Business Challenge Change. Design Thinking Solution Sense Making. Business Challenge Change. All companies must endure change to survive or grow. Our dynamic world continues to include unexpected events that cause disruption and uncertainty. The dirty little secret of change is that there is no theory for change. Change is the heart of leadership, and leaders must understand its context before designing and implementing any change program. They must anticipate everything possible to avoid and manage resistance to change. Rather than suppressing it, they must encourage an expression of concerns and critiques. Leaders also need to avoid people thinking that change is for change's sake. Organizations need to plan for change. At a minimum, they should be able to effectively react to problems as they arise. At a maximum, they should know how to anticipate change and capitalize on opportunities that emerge from it. Simply stated, an organization that not only is prepared for but expects change is one that can overcome challenges. We are living in an age where change is reshaping industries and categories. Whether it's the bursting economic bubbles of the past decade, shifts in regulations, competition from emerging markets, new consumer expectations, or the impact of consumer conversations on the role, value, and legitimacy of brands, the business landscape today is very different from the one most current chief executive officers, CEOs, first entered. The research and literature on change indicate that the number one reason for the success or failure of a change initiative hinges on the leadership skills, level of energy, and knowledge of the individuals responsible for leading the change. In light of this, one obvious question arises: what leadership behaviors or competencies are most strongly associated with effectively leading or overseeing change initiatives? You won't get a straight answer for this. Work environments that nurture the ability to change and encourage employees to develop new and creative ideas will almost always outlast their competitors. Many companies cannot meet the challenges of change because it is easier to stay satisfied with current processes instead of working toward improvement. Striving for change and growth is what keeps companies competitive. But most companies are designed and built for efficiency and predictability. Few are flexible enough or agile enough to handle the full scope of change as it exists in the real world. Wide-stemming cultural changes regarding how and why people use goods and services are not evaluated correctly through market research. Employees are not empowered to creatively frame solutions to endemic organizational problems. And most companies find it easier to deal with glitches in the system as they arise, rather than be sensitive, intuitive, and creative in the development of preemptive change strategies. This creates a chain reaction of error. For many companies, this resistance to change is the beginning of a slow and continuous decline. Products become obsolete. Brands become irrelevant. Organizations become complacent. Organizational change ultimately comes down to dealing with three components. 1. Discrepancy. We have a strong case for change. 2. Appropriateness. We have the right strategy and stakeholders are on board. 3. Efficacy. We can handle it and are committed and confident we will survive. A company's agenda for change might be strategically sound and seemingly able to pave the way forward for years, but visions are susceptible to error and unforeseeable events. To help guard against the chaos of change, a company can use sense-making as a means to remain strategically agile and nimble. Design thinking solution. Sense making. The design thinking approach to sense making is both agile and adaptive unto itself. It employs a broad range of senses and various techniques to identify, collect, question, and interpret the meaning of increasingly complex situations. As unexpected events continue to cause disruption and threaten prosperity, companies must endure change to survive. A plan is needed not just as a reaction to change, but also in anticipation of it. It is important to realize that you will need to apply other design thinking tools and techniques to change as well. You will need to recognize where you are today, where you want to be in the future, and what it will take to make that transition. Sense making is a required capability for developing change competency. Sense making can be a one-time or continuous effort to understand connections and insights in any particular context in order to anticipate their impacts and then act effectively on them. Quite literally about making sense of what's going on, sense making takes an obscure situation that is clouded in uncertainty and complexity and makes it more understandable for decision makers. Here, neither the frame nor the data are locked into place. The frame informs the data, and the data, in turn, inform the frame. Sense making is more than just a process, it's a mindset that is instrumental in the commitment to understanding, learning, and improvement. Once we have a better idea of what is going on in our world through sense making, we will be more equipped to apply our other capabilities of visioning, imagining, and connecting. A plan is needed not just as a reaction to change, but also in anticipation of it. In business contexts, the design thinking approach to sense making tends to lean toward the qualitative, rather than the quantitative, side of signal processing. Design thinking employs sense-making techniques to understand, question, and confront change so that businesses can actively construct, rather than be passive victims, of the imminent. Seeking out the social, technological, economic, environmental, and political drivers and conditions that shape the behaviors, values, and motivations of people and organizations, sense-making inspires teams to pursue new questions rather than lock on to simple, often old answers. Carl Weick, the organizational psychologist and father of sense-making, described the process as structuring the unknown by placing stimuli into some kind of framework that enables us to comprehend, understand, explain, attribute, extrapolate, and predict. This activity begins by encouraging and developing a heightened state of awareness and turning up every level of sensitivity. This may come more naturally to some than to others, but it can be nurtured through new relationships and by establishing dialogues with unconventional sources and networks operating beyond the business core. From sensing to sense-making. From the ever-shifting external market conditions that threaten to redefine demand to the people, processes, values, and beliefs that continue to shape what, why, and how companies work from within, businesses are complex organizations that must remain sensitive and agile to change. Design thinking uses sensing techniques to look for explanations and answers in terms of how people see things and their interrelationships. Sense-making suggests that organizational issues, strategies, breakpoints, mental models, goals, aspirations, core capabilities, teams, and so on are not things that one can find out in the world or that exist in the organization. Rather, their source is people's way of thinking. Externally, sensing means understanding consumers and culture, not data-driven markets, so that even the minutest of signals of change can be evaluated before they become sizable shifts. Internally, sensing involves qualitative, people-centered inquiry, understanding the meanings surrounding the rules, practices, relationships, technologies, and contexts that define us as people. Because these are fluid and require some intuitive read on their trajectory, sensing requires being open to and thriving in ambiguity, not seeking hard data point explanations for phenomena. Ultimately, it doesn't solve. It widens the scope of awareness so that the status quo can be questioned and revised. Sense-making is the process by which design thinkers understand experience. It can be used to learn about a sudden shift in markets, value migration between industries, emerging behaviors associated with disruptive technologies, or the reason why a previously successful business model expired and needs a redesign. To do this, the process of analyzing inputs, such as consumer insights, foresight, weak signals, business objectives, competitive analysis, and so on, requires moving back and forth from the simple to the complex. Then you go back again to challenge assumptions and identify new knowledge, perspectives, and appreciations for conditions. Sense-making is as much about pattern recognition as it is about anomaly detection. Although discovering outliers through an expansive outlook is useful, sometimes the outcomes reveal trends or trajectories that can be leveraged in the innovation process through one key ingredient: timing. Timing is a critical factor in any innovation pipeline. Through sense-making, organizations can get a better sense of the timing required to design and launch a new product or service. So, how does an organization redesign itself in order to incorporate an internal sense-making capability? 1. Improve the senses to increase agility. Design thinking promotes a more dedicated effort to adapt and acquire the tools, methods, and resources needed to sense changing behaviors. It also encourages us to remove the filters and dogmas that limit our exposure to, understanding of, and appreciation for the world around us. 2. Collect the real data. Sense-making requires robust inputs, deep consumer insights, weak signal scanning, competitive analysis, soft and hard leading indicators, and, of course, business performance metrics against which everything else will be measured. 3. Building sensing capabilities. Empower individuals or teams in your company to become sensors. Encourage all members of your organization to collect and share signals regularly. Formalize this process and make the content. 4. Cultivate sensing networks. Encourage cross-functional, cross-market, cross-industry, and cross-cultural connections within professional or social networks outside of your existing department, division, organization, market, and industry context to discover what's going on in adjacent worlds. Learn about the topics of interest, perceived opportunities, and threats that are being discussed, and the language and mental models surrounding them. 5. Leverage social media. Build a broader automated sensor network through conversational platforms. Identify the critical nodes and monitor them regularly, cross-reference with other sources, and drill into salient topics as they emerge. Thanks for watching. Comment for any suggestions. Like, share and subscribe for more videos.